If you're thinking of getting an au pair, I'm sure you've probably heard how amazing it is to have an extra pair of hands to help with the kids in the house, the cultural exchange, and also the possibility of learning a new language. That almost sounds too good to be true, but I strongly believe it can be, and I would like to therefore highlight a few things that many potential host families don't take into consideration and some critical factors that you really should think about so you don't find yourself in a situation where you maybe regret that decision. Hi guys, my name is Tafara and welcome back to AKA Mama. For those of you that are new to this channel, this is the space where we have heartfelt and real conversation about this parenting journey, motherhood, and raising children abroad. So please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future eye-opening conversations we may have in this space. So the first point I'd like to highlight today is that getting an au pair is not just an extra pair of hands to help with the kids, and it's absolutely not comparable to getting a babysitter that you bring into your home on a need basis. So your au pair is a guest in your home, and you're going to be hosting them for the next 6 to 12 months, and they may have different cultural expectations, different habits, and different needs. And one thing that's also very important to take into consideration is the fact that there's going to be a gap between the time the au pair moves in till they fully transition and become the kind of help that you envision them to be in your home. So, adjusting to a new country, a new family, that can take some time and it can be overwhelming. So, whilst you brought this person in to help you with the children, they also are going to need your support to settle in. So you should be aware of that and, be patient and have realistic expectations. They have limits. They are not full time caregivers and there are very strict rules and legal restrictions regarding the framework of that responsibility. But I'll get into that later. One point I just want to highlight right now is really ask yourself whether you're open to the idea of bringing someone in not only as help, but as really a part of your household. The second thing that a lot of host families overlook is cultural and lifestyle differences. I mean, think about it. Your pair may come from a background where parenting, discipline, and household roles are very different. So, an au pair may come from a culture that emphasizes strict disciplinary methods, and you may have a family that practices gentle parenting. And one may come from a culture that is big on, mutual family roles. And you may have an au pair that is strictly only supporting with the roles that are related to the kids. So I think it's really, really important that you're open and transparent when you're having conversations with your au pair, when you're getting to know them, and that prior communication. I moved to this country in 2007, and back then, the main form of communication was emails, and we had a few calls here and there, but we didn't have WhatsApp and Zoom and all these different kinds of media. So really, fully utilize that and be as honest as can be to increase your chances of finding, the best fit. And I'll give a maybe trivial but example of different cultural expectations. I switched my first host family after 1.5 months, and although many things aligned and were really as was said, I had a big problem with the way my guest mother used to shout. Not only at me, I mean, she used to shout at the guest's dad, she used to shout at myself and also at the kids. And that for me was a really, really, really big culture shock. And I feel like it's something that could have been expressed. When you're talking, you can say, oh, I have high temperament. Sometimes I shout, but don't take it personally. Or when I brought this up with her, she said to me, oh, you think I shouted you? Wait until the day I shouted you. So I was like, oh my gosh, it's gonna get worse than this. But I know people that have, families where one of the parents shout a lot, and it's something they previously mentioned, and someone is like, oh, I grew up in a house where my parents always shouting at each other. I didn't grow up in such a household. I don't want something like that. I'm absolutely scared of that. But so by disclosing this kind of information, you can avoid getting an au pair like me. And then there's some people that will read it and they're like, oh yeah, we're used to this. This is how things, run in our household. Well, just those small pieces of detail that you should be sharing with each other in the beginning to find the right fit. Your home is no longer your home. And this is the absolutely normal thing that happens when you bring in a new person into your household for a longer period of time. The dynamics are going to change. So when you think of privacy and boundaries, ask yourself if you're really okay with having somebody in your space 24/7. And I'll say it's important to set family rules. Are you open minded and willing to come up with rules that are fair for both parties so you can all feel comfortable in your home? And one thing that's also important to ask oneself is, how are you going to handle it if there's personality differences? You might be a family that does everything together, and your au pair might be somebody that's very independent, that, spends their time with their family and with the guest family, and when they're done with that, they move on to do their own thing. Are you going to be okay with that, or is it going to cause tension? So these are just a few questions you need to ask yourself and answer them as honestly as can be before you embark on this journey of becoming a host family. I've heard so many stories about host families that started to tiptoe around their home, and likewise for the au pairs. So I don't know, man, if you really like your quiet space, if you're really particular about stuff, really ask yourself if this is the right decision for you and your family or not. The last aspect that I'd love to highlight today is the financial and legal side of things. And here we also do have a few things that some families overlook. So I know host families that lived in the US, they had au pairs, they absolutely loved the program. It was just the perfect solution for their families. And then they relocated to Germany, and the same program was not working for them because in the US, au pairs are allowed to work up to 45 hours a week. And in Germany, this is restricted to 30 hours a week and a maximum of 6 hours a day. So I'd really urge you to do the research for the country that you're going to be living in whilst you have an au pair. And don't expect that everything is going to be the same if you've done it in a different country before. Um, the second thing I would like to highlight is the financial side of things. So currently in Germany, au pairs do get 280 euros pocket money a month. And if you pay your au pair this money in cash, you can't later on declare it when you do your tax returns. But if you transfer it to their bank account, you then can later declare it when you're doing your tax returns. So I would highly urge you to, if this is something you want to look into, of which it makes sense to do so, I would urge you to help your au pair open a bank account, so you can then later use those transfers for your tax returns. Circling back to that 280 euros, I find that a lot of guest families really focus on that amount as the key expense of what it entails to bring an au pair into your home. But I really urge you to further research on the additional costs. If you're bringing your au pair in using an agency, they're going to fully inform you of that. But I know some people use Au Pair World and they do this by themselves. You need to also be aware of the fact that there's going to be medical insurance, which is on average 50 euros a month. You need to pay for one or two language courses. And if you're not paying for that, you're going to need to pay the au pair 70 euros more a month so that they can save to attend a language course, or they can pay for that. You're also going to need to pay for their transport ticket so that they can use public transport to attend their courses. I know today a lot of families are opting for the online courses, but I'll still highly recommend that your au pair goes to a live in-person course, because then they can interact with other au pairs on the same journey, and it actually really helps them on their journey of learning the language. The last point I'd like to highlight today and really emphasize is, ask yourself, what are you going to do if things don't work out? I mean, what's your solution if everything doesn't go smoothly? It's a really, really important thing to ask yourself, because a lot of people bring in an au pair as a solution. So if things don't work out and you need to, end things for one reason or the other, you're eliminating that solution, which then maybe puts you in crisis mode. So I know there are various options. You may bring in an au pair individually. You may find someone on au pair world. I can't really speak on that because that's not the path that I went. But I came in using an agency, and I would highly recommend that you do that because both parties have 2 weeks notice period. So if you establish that this is just really not going to work and you need to terminate that au pair contract, they'll be gone within 2 weeks. But then the other way around as well, if your au pair is not happy and you brought them in as a solution and then they terminate their contract, from that day onwards, 14 days later, the solution you had is gone. What are you going to do? So this is where I would highly recommend that you work together with an agency, because when somebody does terminate their contract, the agencies immediately start helping you look for an alternative. And from my experience, a lot of cases, the second au pair is often a good fit because you know what's not working for you, what you don't like, and the agencies also have the feedback from the au pair, what issues they had with the first family. So it then also often works significantly faster when the agency is replacing the au pair for you, as opposed to if you brought them in by yourself and it's a process that takes a lot of months. So if the solution you brought in today is going to be out the window 2 weeks later, it may then take you many, many months to find that solution again. So I would say I've highlighted the most critical, I would say, intangent points that many potential host families don't look into. And I hope that this video was helpful to you. If you're looking into getting an au pair, could you please share in the comment section what are your critical points? What are your challenges? What are you scared of? And for those of you that have brought au pairs into your home, please share in the comment section what worked really well for you, or what did you do differently by the time you got the second, the third, or the fourth au pair? Because I know some families really do this annually, so I'd be interested in hearing from you. If you found this video helpful, please like this video, hit the subscribe button, and I look forward to having you on more real talk, about this parenting journey and raising children abroad. Thank you so much and see you next time.
Like, comment, subscribe, and share.